dusk, somewhere in medieval France. The bell up in the church tower starts to ring, and every head in the street turns because the sound is wrong, too fast, too ragged. This is not the hour, not a wedding, not the call to evening prayer. Someone is beating the bronze hard and quick, the same few notes again and again, and everyone here has known since childhood what that means. They stop. Some run for their homes, others run for weapons. Within the hour, this town could be an open revolt, and a single sound has done what no messenger ever could. It reached every ear at the same moment. In the Middle Ages, the bell was the most powerful instrument in Europe and one of the most dangerous. Kings feared it. The church turned it into a weapon. And on one Easter evening, a ringing bell helped set off a massacre. So why were the most powerful men alive so frightened of a sound? Why would that scare the people in charge? It comes down to what a bell meant back then, something we have almost completely forgotten. There were no clocks on the wall, no phones, no quick way at all to reach hundreds of people across a distance, except one. A big bell was the loudest thing most peasants would ever hear in their whole lives, and it carried for miles. So towns ran on it, completely. One pattern of strokes called you to mass. A quick peal rang in a birth. A slow, heavy toll marked a death, and a dying man would often hear his own passing bell, each stroke telling the parish that a soul was on its way out. The same tower called workers to the fields, rang for weddings and feasts, and screamed when fire broke out, or floodwater rose, or an enemy appeared on the road. From the 10th century on, towns built taller and taller towers, the belfry and the campanile, for one reason only, to throw a bell's voice further. Casting one was an event in itself. The bronze was melted and poured into a mold sunk in a pit beside the church, and the whole town came to watch, half in celebration, half praying it would not crack as it cooled. By the 14th century, the first great tower clocks were striking the hours on the deepest bell of the set. You did not check the time was rung at you. And here is the strange part, people believed they belonged to a bell. Your community was, quite literally, everyone close enough to hear yours. Bells were treated almost like living members of the town, blessed in church and given their own names, their sides cast with prayers, because something this powerful was not allowed to be ordinary. In fact, the church did something to a new bell that it did to almost nothing else. It baptized it. A bishop washed the bronze with holy water, anointed it with sacred oil, named it after a saint, and even gave it godparents, exactly like a child. And people believed a blessed bell had power over the sky itself. Many were cast with a line running around the rim, in Latin, I break the lightning, I scatter the storms, I drive away demons. So when the thunder rolled in, the ringer would climb the tower and haul on the rope in the thick of it, trying to beat the storm back with sound. Some were struck dead by the very lightning they rang against. But a sound that can move a whole town in an instant is not just useful, it is power. And the king and the church both knew exactly what that meant. Control the bell, and you controlled the town. So who was allowed to pull the rope, and when, was something lords and bishops guarded closely. The same rope that opened a peaceful market could just as easily raise an angry mob, and the church held the most chilling power of all over that sound. It could take it away completely. The weapon had a name, the interdict. Defy the Pope, and the church could lock every church door in your land, stop the mass, ban burials, and, worst of all, silence the bells. No call to prayer, no toll for the dead, just an unnatural quiet pressing down on a whole country. In 1208, King John of England found out exactly how that felt. He had refused the Pope's choice for Archbishop of Canterbury, so Pope Innocent III put all of England under interdict. Almost everything stopped. No mass, no church weddings, no burial in holy ground. The only mercies left were baptism for a newborn and confession for the dying. For more than 6 years, the bells of England went silent. The dead were dropped into unconsecrated ground beside the roads. Even bishops were buried at the roadside, like paupers, and one chronicler could not stand the stink of the unburied dead hanging over the towns. John, for his part, did not sit quietly. He seized the church's lands and treasure across England and pocketed the income for years. But the silence did its own slow work. With the country under interdict and the king himself excommunicated, John's own subjects were quietly released from their loyalty to him. The barons began to circle. The king of France started eyeing the throne. A kingdom was being punished, not with an army, but with the absence of a sound, and it nearly cost John everything. So in the end, the most stubborn king in Europe folded. In 1213, John handed his entire kingdom to the Pope and took it back as a papal vassal, paying Rome 1,000 marks a year just to make the ringing start again. When the interdict was finally lifted, in 1214, one monk was so relieved he doodled little ringing bells into the margin of his chronicle. The silence had been that loud. But silence was the church's weapon. In ordinary hands, the very same bell could do the opposite. It could start a war. That world never really went quiet. It still rings inside your own day, starting with a word you have said 100 times without thinking: curfew. It comes straight from the old French couvre-feu, cover fire. In a town built of timber, one stray ember could take out an entire street overnight. So a bell rang at around 8 each evening, and that was the order. Bank your hearth, put out your lights, go to sleep. After 1066, the Norman kings enforced that curfew bell so harshly that the English came to hate it as a badge of servitude, until Henry I eased the rule in 1103. So the bell that's once kept you safe in the dark became, centuries later, the word your parents used when they wanted you home by a certain hour, and the echoes go further. The clock face you check on your phone descends directly from those tower clocks, striking the hour on a bell so the town would fall in line with it. Talk about a death knell, or quote that old line, "For whom the bell tolls," and you are still using words the bells left behind. Even alarm hides a bell inside it. It comes from the old Italian all arm, two arms, the shout that went up the instant the alarm bell began to pound. But there is one use of the bell that scared medieval rulers more than any tax or any army, and it is the part almost nobody gets told. This was the tocsin, the alarm bell. It did not sound like the hour, or the call to prayer. It was fast, frantic, a wild, uneven hammering that meant one thing: danger, right now. Nobody needed it, explained to them. They heard it, and they moved, some bolting for cover, some grabbing whatever they could fight with. A tocsin could pull a whole town into the square, armed and furious, faster than any ruler could march soldiers in to stop it. The same bronze that called you to kneel could call you to kill. Easter Monday, 1282. Outside Palermo, a crowd is gathering at a church for the evening service of Vespers. Sicily, at this point, is ruled by a French king, Charles of Anjou, and the islanders despise him. While everyone waits for the service to start, a French sergeant called Drouet grabs a local woman and will not let go. Her husband draws a knife and kills him on the spot. The other Frenchmen pile in, and the crowd turns on them. And as the Vesper bells ring out over Palermo that evening, the killing jumps from church to church, street to street. 6 weeks later, thousands of French men and women across Sicily are dead, and Charles has lost the island for good. The war that one evening set off would grind on for another 20 years. We remember it now as the Sicilian Vespers, the night the bells supposedly called Sicily to rise. The real story is quieter than the legend. No one rang a secret signal to launch a massacre. But the people of the 13th century believed, deep down, that a bell could raise a kingdom. And after that Easter, so did every ruler in Europe. So the next time you hear a bell somewhere across your town, stop for a second. You will probably barely register it, just a nice noise from some old building. But for 1,000 years, that sound ran people's whole lives. It woke them in the morning and told them into the grave. It told them when to pray, when to work, when to bank the fire and sleep. It could shut a kingdom up for 6 years, or call one to arms in minutes. It was baptized like a person, and it once made a king hand over his whole kingdom just to hear it ring again. We took the most powerful instrument in Europe and slowly turned it into background noise. And maybe that is how you really know an age is over, when its loudest sound becomes the one nobody bothers to hear. If you want more reasons hiding in plain sight, that is the whole point of this channel. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.